Every so often in the news, we will see a story in which someone owns exotic animal pets and just mistreats them. Whether it be the animals escaping and harming other people, or the animals being mistreated themselves and how the owner keeps them. Whether it be a lemur, a chimpanzee, or a crocodile, all the time we see stories of these animals being kept and locked up in homes and people going through lots of loopholes to get them, only for them to be abused. If you all are anything like me, you become very angry, frustrated, and even borderline sad when you see these stories. After hearing about some of these controversies, I decided to do more research into the topic of exotic animal pet ownership and mistreatment. And after doing this research, I've come to the conclusion that exotic animals should not be kept as pets. As college students, we are soon to be living by ourselves and on our own and making our own independent decisions, including what kind of pets we would like to own. So I'm here today to encourage you to not own exotic animal pets. In order to do this, I will first define what exactly an exotic animal pet is and give some examples of the horrors of exotic animal pet ownership. Next, using these examples, I will explain the causes of exotic animal pet mistreatment. And lastly, I will explain what we can do to end both exotic pet ownership and exotic pet mistreatment. So first off, to understand what an exotic pet is, we need to define it. And then to understand its mistreatment, we need to hear some examples of exotic pet mistreatment in the past year or so. So the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations describes an exotic pet as any animal that is native to a foreign country, is not native to the U.S., or was introduced from abroad, includes but not limited to lions, tigers, elephants, leopards, kangaroos, and anteaters. So according to U.S. law, an exotic pet is simply any animal from another country. Now this is a good definition as it is a legal one, but I think we need a little more. Some general practice veterinarians describe an exotic pet as any pet that is not a dog, cat, or farm animal, because if it's another animal, it needs to be taken to a veterinary specialist in either that area or that species. The National Humane Education Society defines an exotic pet as any wild species kept for human pleasure or companionship. The emphasis here, I think, is wild, so its natural habitat is the wild, and kept for pleasure, not like a farm animal that's used for a specific purpose, but just for pleasure or companionship. So using these three definitions, I think we can define an exotic pet as any pet that is not traditional, that is not native to the U.S., requires a specialized vet, and is just used for pleasure or companionship. So now that we know what an exotic pet is, we can learn about some of the examples of horrors of exotic pet mistreatment in recent months. In December of 2018, a man was pulled over because the trailer attached to the back of his truck was dragging on the ground, and police wanted to investigate. So while they were talking to the man, a lemur climbed out of the trailer and began to play with the officers. So they decided, let's investigate the trailer. They found a tortoise, a lemur, obviously, some parrots, and a wallaby with 2 broken legs that could hardly walk. Police then investigated the man's home, and they found over 140 exotic animals, all being mistreated, including goats, lemurs, emus, alpacas, llamas, you name it, it was probably there. The interesting thing about this case was that the man was actually put on probation in 2013 for animal abuse. So he was not only not allowed to own, obviously, illegal pets, but any pets at all. In October of 2018 in Pennsylvania, a man's house was investigated after suspicions arose of him having exotic pets, and he did, in fact. In his home, he had 240 exotic animal pets, including boxes filled with pythons, tortoises, ferrets, parrots, and even a full crocodile in there. After his first home was investigated, another one of this man's properties was searched through, and they actually found 60 or so more animals, including pigs and more ferrets and more tortoises. And between both these homes, a lot of these animals were dead, not only because they attacked each other, but also because of all the disease spread through their excrement, which the man was not cleaning and terribly mistreating the animals. So now that we know some examples of exotic pet mistreatment, we can use these examples to find what the root of the problem is. Why are these exotic animal pets getting mistreated and being owned in the first place, honestly? First off, they're not difficult to obtain. In the Florida case, the man was already on probation. He couldn't even own a pet, one single dog, and he somehow got his hands on all of these exotic animals. In the Pennsylvania case, the man had 300. He was collecting them over time. He was somehow able to obtain 300 wild animals without being caught. This is an issue. And then the second reason why exotic pet ownership happens and mistreatment then occurs is a lack of enforcement of the law and a lack of social pressure, really, to not do this. In the Florida case, obviously the man was on probation, yet at the same time he wasn't being monitored closely enough, because he was still able to obtain around 150 wild animals. The law was not being enforced correctly. And then in the Pennsylvania case, the man had 300 animals. There had to be people that known about it and didn't report him before the one that did report him did. And this kind of shows just an overall social pressure that there's a lack of. It's only exotic pets is looked at as cool and not mistreating the animals, but deep down, it is an issue. So now that we know what causes exotic pet mistreatment and ownership, what exactly can we do to take action to end both the mistreatment and the ownership? First off, we can use our American rights to pass legislation that will help the animals. Born Free USA, which is an animal rights organization, describes that states have different laws depending on what state you're in, obviously. For example, in Indiana, it is legal to own exotic pets as long as you have a license. So using our power, we can both fight for our laws that we already have to be better enforced, and we can fight for even better laws that even more restrict the ownership of exotic animal pets, or at least strengthen the qualifications required to legally own one. The second thing we can do is report exotic pet mistreatment when we see it. Because frankly, not only is it bad for the animals, but it's a safety issue for us. Since 1990 in the United States, 1,160 incidents have occurred in which exotic animal pets either broke out or attacked their owners, and 75 people have died in these incidents. This is an issue. If you see a problem, report it so this person can get caught. And the last, most simple solution that I have for all of you that I hope you take away from this is just to not do it yourself. Michelle C. Hollins, who is an animal rights author and journalist, has written many published books about this topic, often talks about how these animals are not intended to live with humans. They've not been created to live in an environment that is similar to the one we live in, and we cannot properly care for them. For this reason, we should not own them. So now that you know what an exotic pet is, how they're mistreated, what causes the mistreatment, and what we can do about it, I really hope you decide to take action. This is a well-educated group on exotic pet ownership, I feel like, and especially now after learning so much more about it. So one day, when your son or daughter asks for a new pet lion or a chimpanzee to play with, just remember that a puppy will probably make them just as happy.